The sun began to rise over Calvor Prime. Its red light spread across the desert like blood spilling over sand. And in that light, the true cost of the night became visible. Bodies were everywhere. Thousands of them. They lay in piles near campfires that had long gone cold. They lay in lines where soldiers had tried to form defenses. They lay alone in the rocks where warriors had tried to hide. The great Calvorian army that had stood so proud yesterday was now a field of death dawn, and in the middle of it all, Tay still moved. She was slower now. Her armor was broken in several places. Green blood covered her from head to toe, mixing with red blood from her own wounds. Her left arm hung at her side, broken in 2 places. Her breathing was rough and painful. But she was still fighting. General Vorak had gathered his remaining soldiers around his command platform. There were less than 4,000 left. Less than half of what he had started with. And the number was still dropping as Tay continued her work on the edges of their defensive circle. How is this possible? Vorak whispered. He was sitting on his command chair, staring at the battle reports. His 4 eyes could not believe what they were seeing. One human. One. Commander Drax stood beside him. The commander's face was pale with fear. He had fought in many battles. He had seen many terrible things. But he had never seen anything like this. General, Drax said carefully, perhaps we should consider the human's original offer. Perhaps we should retreat? Vorak jumped up from his chair. You want me to retreat from one human? Do you know what that would mean? The entire galaxy would laugh at us. The Calvorian Empire would become a joke. With respect, General, Drax said, we are already dying. What good is our pride if we are all dead? Vorak grabbed Drax by the throat. Speak of retreat again, and I will kill you myself. He threw Drax to the ground and turned to look at the battlefield. Somewhere out there, the human was still fighting. He could see flashes of silver as her blade caught the morning light. He could hear screams as more of his soldiers fell. She was not human. She could not be. No human could do what she was doing. She had to be a machine, or a demon, or something else entirely. Something that the universe had sent to punish him for his pride. But Vorak was not ready to accept defeat. He was the greatest general of the Calvorian Empire. He had conquered 12 worlds. He would not lose to one creature, no matter what it was. Bring out the heavy weapons, he ordered. All of them. Artillery, plasma cannons, everything. We will burn the entire area to ash. If we cannot kill her with soldiers, we will kill her with fire. His officers looked at each other nervously. Using heavy weapons meant killing many of their own soldiers too. But no one dared to argue with Vorak. Massive weapons were rolled out from the supply ships. Cannons that could destroy buildings with a single shot. Artillery that could create craters the size of lakes. Weapons that had been built to destroy cities, now aimed at a single woman. Fire, Vorak commanded. The world exploded. Tay was fighting a group of soldiers when she heard the sound of the heavy weapons activating. Her helmet's computer calculated the threat in less than a second. Warning lights flashed across her vision. She ran out behind her. The ground erupted. Fire and rock flew into the air. The soldiers she had been fighting were vaporized instantly. The shockwave picked her up and threw her through the air like a leaf in a storm. She hit the ground hard. Pain exploded through her body. Her helmet cracked. Systems started to fail. For a moment, everything went dark. Then she opened her eyes. She was lying in a crater. Her armor was destroyed in many places. She could feel broken ribs, maybe a punctured lung. Blood was filling her mouth. Her body was telling her that she was dying. But she was not dead yet. She pushed herself up with her one good arm. The world was spinning around her. Fires burned everywhere. The sound of explosions continued as Vorak's weapons hit more and more of the battlefield. Not caring about the Calvorian soldiers still out there, she looked at her wrist device. Most of the functions were damaged, but a few still worked. She pressed a button and took a special injection from a hidden compartment. The medicine entered her blood and started working immediately. The pain faded. Her broken bones were not healed, but she could move now. She had maybe an hour before the medicine wore off. Maybe less. After that, her body would shut down completely. 1 hour. That was enough. She climbed out of the crater and started walking toward Vorak's position. Around her, the bombardment continued. Explosions hit the ground every few seconds. But her computer was still working well enough to calculate the patterns. She moved between the explosions like she had moved between energy bolts earlier. Vorak saw her coming. He could not believe his 4 eyes. He just destroyed half of his remaining army trying to kill her, and she was still walking? Impossible, he breathed. This is impossible. He ordered his soldiers to form a wall between him and the approaching human. They obeyed, but their hands were shaking. Their weapons were not steady. They had watched this woman kill 7,000 of their brothers through the night. They had watched her survive a bombardment that should have destroyed a small mountain. They were no longer soldiers. They were scared children facing a nightmare. Tay stopped 100 meters from the defensive line. She was barely standing. Blood dripped from her broken armor. Her helmet was cracked, and one of her eyes was swollen shut. She looked like she should be dead, but she was still holding her blade. "General Vorak," she called out. Her voice was rough with pain, but still strong enough to be heard. "Your army is broken. Your soldiers are terrified. You have killed more of your own people than I have in the last hour. This is your last chance. Surrender now, and I will let the survivors go home." Vorak stepped forward, pushing through his soldiers. His face was twisted with rage and fear and something else. Something that looked almost like madness. "You think you have won?" he screamed. "You are dying. I can see it. You can barely stand. All I have to do is wait, and you will fall." Tay nodded slowly. "You are right. I am dying. But I am not dead yet. And before I die, I will kill you. That is a promise." Something in her voice made Vorak's blood freeze. He believed her. Despite everything, despite his army, despite his weapons, despite her wounds, he believed that she would kill him. For the first time in his life, Vorak felt true terror. "Kill her," he screamed, stepping back behind his soldiers. "Everyone attack. Kill her now." The remaining soldiers charged. Thousands of them, all at once. A wave of green bodies and sharp weapons rushing toward one broken human. Tay watched them come. She raised her blade one last time. "Recording," she whispered. "If this message reaches Earth, tell them. Tell them I did my best." Then she ran to meet the army. The final battle had begun. Inside the small ship, Captain Tay removed her helmet. Her face was young, but her eyes were old. They had seen too much death, too much war, too much pain. Her black hair was cut short, and a thin scar ran across her left cheek. She was 32 years old, but she felt much older. She sat down in the pilot's seat and looked at the screen in front of her. It showed the alien army outside. 10,000 warriors, waiting to kill her. She studied their positions, their weapons, their formations. Her mind was working like a computer, calculating, planning, preparing. Most people would be afraid. Most people would be screaming, crying, begging for help. But Tay felt nothing. Fear was something she had left behind many years ago. She pressed a button on the control panel. The screen changed to show a video message. A man appeared on the screen. He was old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He wore the uniform of Earth's highest military rank. His name was General Park, and he was the leader of Earth's defense forces. Captain Tay, the recorded message said, "If you are watching this, you have arrived at Calvary Prime. You have seen the enemy army. You understand what you are facing." Tay nodded, even though the message could not see her. The council debated for many days about how to respond to the Calvorian threat. General Park continued. Some wanted to send our entire fleet. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to surrender. In the end, they chose option 4. They chose you. Tay remembered that day. She had been called into a room full of politicians and generals. They had looked at her like she was a weapon, not a person. And in many ways, they were right. "You are the best we have," General Park said. "You are the result of 30 years of training, 30 years of enhancement, 30 years of sacrifice. You are not just a soldier, Captain. You are the answer to a question that humanity has been asking since we first looked at the stars. Can we survive?" Tay thought about her life. She had been taken from her family when she was 5 years old. The government had seen something special in her, something that could be shaped, molded, sharpened into a blade. She had spent her childhood learning how to fight, learning how to kill, learning how to survive when survival was impossible. She had been enhanced with technology that made her faster, stronger, and smarter than any normal human. Her bones were reinforced with metal. Her muscles were modified to work beyond human limits. Her brain was connected to computers that helped her think and react faster than the speed of thought. But the enhancements were not what made her dangerous. What made her dangerous was her training. She had been taught by the best fighters on Earth. She had learned every martial art, every weapon, every strategy. She had fought in 23 battles before she was 25. She had never lost. "The Calvorians think they are strong because they have numbers," General Park said. "They think they are powerful because they have conquered weak planets. They have never faced a human like you. They do not know what humanity is capable of when we are pushed to the edge." Tay stood up and walked to a locker at the back of the ship. She opened it and looked at her equipment. Her armor was made of the strongest material known to Earth science. It could stop bullets, blades, and even small explosions. Her blade was made of a special metal that could cut through almost anything. On her wrist, she wore a device that contained many tools and weapons, but her most powerful weapon was not in the locker. It was in her mind. She had been trained to see patterns that others could not see, to find weaknesses in any enemy, to predict what her opponents would do before they did it. In her mind, every battle was like a game of chess, and she had never lost a game of chess. She started to put on her armor piece by piece. As she did, she thought about the enemy general, Vark. He was confident. He was arrogant. He believed that numbers always won. He had never faced an enemy who fought differently. That would be his mistake. On Earth, there was a story about a great warrior from ancient times. He was asked how he would fight an army of 1,000 men. He replied that he would not fight 1,000 men. He would fight one man 1,000 times. That was how Tay would fight tonight. She would not face 10,000 enemies. She would face one enemy again and again, until there were no enemies left. The sun outside was getting lower. Soon it would set, and the darkness would come. Darkness was her friend. She had trained to fight in complete darkness. She could move without making a sound. She could see in the dark using special equipment. She could kill before her enemies even knew she was their dot. She finished putting on her armor and picked up her helmet. Before she put it on, she looked at a small picture attached to the wall of the ship. It showed two people, an older man and woman, her parents. She had not seen them since she was 5 years old. She did not even know if they were still alive. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the picture. "I am sorry I never came home." Then she put on her helmet and sealed it. The visor lit up with information. enemy positions, wind speed, temperature, time until sunset. Everything she needed to know. She sat down and waited. Outside, she could hear the alien army making noise. They were celebrating. They thought tonight would be an easy victory. They thought they would kill the stupid human and then fly to Earth to conquer her planet. They were wrong. Tay closed her eyes and controlled her breathing. Her heart rate slowed. Her mind became calm and clear. She entered a state of focus that she had learned through years of meditation. In this state there was no fear, no doubt, no hesitation. There was only the mission. An hour passed. The red sun touched the horizon. Long shadows stretched across the rocky desert. The alien army was starting to light fires for the night. They were cooking food and sharing drinks. They were telling stories about their past victories. Tay opened her eyes. On her screen, she could see that the sun was almost gone. The last red light was fading from the sky. Stars were beginning to appear. She stood up and walked to the door of her ship. Her hand touched the control to open it, but she paused. For a moment, she thought about all the people on Earth. Billions of lives depending on her. Families, children, old people, young people. People who would never know her name. People who would never know that one soldier had gone to fight for them. She pressed the button. The door opened. The ramp extended. Outside, the alien army was spread across the desert like a sea of green bodies. Fires burned everywhere, making dancing shadows. The noise of 10,000 warriors talking and laughing filled the air. Tay walked down the ramp. The cold night air touched her armor. Above her, strange stars filled the sky. 2 moons hung in the darkness, casting pale light on the ground. She stopped at the bottom of the ramp and looked at the army. From here, they looked like insects. Small and many. Easy to step on. General Vorak's voice came from speakers across the desert. The human has come out. Look, everyone, our entertainment has arrived. Laughter echoed across the rocky ground. Weapons were raised. Soldiers stood up from their fires, eager to see the human die. Tay reached up and touched the side of her helmet. A soft click sounded as she activated her combat systems. Information flooded her vision. Enemy positions were marked in red. Weak points in their formation were highlighted in blue. Paths through the army were drawn in green. She took a deep breath. "Begin recording," she said quietly. Her helmet started to record everything she saw and did. If she survived, the recording would be sent to Earth as a training video. If she died, the recording would be sent to Earth as a warning. She drew her blade. The metal caught the light of the moons and glowed like a piece of silver fire. "Time to introduce myself," she whispered. Then she started walking toward the alien army. Her steps were slow at first, then faster. Then she was running. The night had begun, and so had the killing. The red sun of Calvary Prime hung low in the sky, painting the rocky desert in shades of blood and rust. General Vorak stood on a tall stone platform, looking down at his massive army. 10,000 warriors stood in perfect lines, their green skin shining under the alien sun. Each soldier held a weapon that could cut through metal like paper. Each soldier had been trained since birth to kill. Vorak was proud. His army had conquered 12 worlds. They had never lost a single battle. The Calvorian Empire was the most powerful force in the galaxy, and Vorak was their greatest general. His body was covered in scars from 100 victories. His 4 eyes showed no mercy. His heart knew no fear. Today, they would add Earth to their list of conquered planets. The humans had refused to surrender. They had refused to bow. When Vorak sent his message demanding that Earth give up, the humans had sent back only 3 words: "Come and try." Vorak had laughed at their courage. Courage without power was just stupidity. What could humans do against his army? They were soft creatures. They had no claws. They had no thick skin. They lived short lives on a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. They were nothing. "General," one of his commanders called out. "The human ship is coming." Vorak looked up at the orange sky. A small black dot was falling through the clouds. It was a ship, but it was tiny. Too tiny. Vorak had expected a fleet. He had expected thousands of human warships. He had prepared his army for a great battle that would be remembered for 1,000 years. But this ship was alone. And it was small enough to fit inside his bedroom. The ship fell slowly, using fire from its engines to control its landing. It touched down on the rocky ground about 500 meters from the Calvorian army. Dust flew into the air. The engines went quiet. For a long moment, nothing happened. Vorak's commanders looked at each other. Confusion was on their faces. "Is this a trick?" Commander Drax asked. He was Vorak's second in command, a tall warrior with scars on his face. "Are there more ships coming?" Vorak looked at the sky. It was empty. He looked at his scanner. It showed nothing else approaching the planet. "Scan the ship," Vorak ordered. A soldier ran to a scanning machine and pressed buttons. After a moment, he turned back to Vorak with a strange look on his face. "General," the soldier said, "the ship contains only one life form." "One?" Vorak repeated. He was not sure he had heard correctly. "Yes, General. One human. That is all." Silence fell over the army. 10,000 warriors stood in confusion. Then Vorak started to laugh. It was a deep, loud laugh that echoed across the desert. His commanders joined him. Soon, the whole army was laughing. The sound was like thunder rolling across the land. "One soldier!" Vorak shouted. "The humans sent one soldier to fight my army." The door of the human ship opened with a hiss of air. A ramp extended down to the ground. From inside the ship, a single figure emerged. The human was small. Compared to the Calvorian warriors, who stood over 2 meters tall, this human looked like a child. The human wore black armor that covered the whole body. A helmet hid the face. The human carried no visible weapon except a short blade on the belt and a small device on the wrist. The human walked down the ramp slowly. There was no fear in those steps. No hurry. The human moved like someone taking a walk in a park, not like someone facing 10,000 enemies. Vorak watched with amusement. This is what humanity sends to defend itself. One tiny soldier in black pajamas. More laughter from his army. Soldiers banged their weapons against their shields, making a sound like a storm. "Should we kill it now, General?" Commander Drax asked. "One shot from our cannons and this joke is over." Vorak shook his head. "No, I want to talk to this human first. I want to understand what kind of madness made them think one soldier could make any difference. Then I will kill it myself with my own hands and send its body back to Earth as a message." Vorak climbed down from his platform. His personal guards followed him. They walked across the rocky ground toward the human ship. The human had stopped at the bottom of the ramp and was waiting. As Vorak got closer, he studied the human carefully. The armor was simple but well made. There were no decorations, no symbols, no marks of rank. Just plain black metal. The helmet had a dark visor that hid the face completely. Vorak stopped 10 meters from the human. He crossed his forearms and smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "I am General Vorak of the Calvorian Empire," he announced. "I have conquered 12 worlds. I have killed millions. Who are you, tiny creature? What is your name?" The human did not answer immediately. Then a voice came from behind the helmet. It was a woman's voice, calm and quiet. "I am Captain Tay," she said. "Earth Defense Force, Special Operations Division." Vorak laughed again. "Captain? They sent a captain? Not even a general?" Not even an admiral? Just a captain? Earth thought a captain would be enough, Tay replied. This made Vorak laugh even harder. His guards joined in, their voices rough and cruel. Enough for what? Vorak asked. Enough to die. Enough to make us laugh? Look around you, Captain. Look at my army. 10,000 of the finest warriors in the galaxy. What can one human do against such power? Captain Tay turned her head slightly, looking at the army in the distance. Then she turned back to Vorak. I am not here to fight your army, she said. Vorak raised what would be an eyebrow on a human. Then why are you here? I am here to give you a choice, Tay said. Leave this system. Go back to your empire. Never come near Earth again. If you do this, you live. Vorak stared at her. For a moment, he could not believe what he was hearing. Then he burst into laughter again, the loudest laugh yet. You threaten me? He shouted. One human threatens the greatest general in the galaxy. You are not brave, Captain. You are insane. I am giving you a chance, Tay said. Her voice had not changed. It was still calm, still quiet. This is your only chance. Take it. Vorak leaned down, bringing his face close to her helmet. His breath was hot against the dark visor. Here is my answer. Little human, he growled. I am going to tear you apart with my bare hands. Then I am going to fly to Earth and burn every city to ash. I am going to enslave your people and make them work in our mines until they die. And your planet will become another trophy in my collection. Captain Tay did not step back. She did not move at all. I understand, she said. You have made your choice. She turned and walked back toward her ship. Vorak watched her go, still smiling. Running away already? He called after her. I thought humans had courage. Tay stopped at the ramp. She looked back over her shoulder. I am not running, she said. I am preparing. When the sun sets, we begin. I wanted to give you time to say goodbye to your soldiers. Then she walked up the ramp, and the door closed behind her. Vorak stood there for a moment, his smile fading slightly. There was something in her voice. Something cold. Something that, for just a second, made him feel uncomfortable. Then he shook his head and turned back to his army. Tonight, he shouted, we will have human meat for dinner. The army roared with approval. The sound shook the ground, but as Vorak walked back to his platform, he could not stop thinking about the way the human had spoken. So calm, so sure, he pushed the thought away. It was nothing. She was nothing. By tomorrow, she would be dead. What happened next would be talked about for 1,000 years across the galaxy. Survivors would tell their children. Their children would tell their grandchildren. The story would grow and change, becoming legend and then myth. But the core of the story would always remain the same. One human against thousands. And the human one. Tay fought like nothing the Calvorians had ever seen. She fought like a spirit of war itself. Her blade moved so fast that it became invisible. Her body twisted and turned between attacks that should have killed her 100 times. She used everything she had learned in 30 years of training. Every technique, every trick, every secret. When her blade finally broke, she used her hands. When her legs gave out, she fought from the ground. When she could no longer see, she listened to her enemies and struck at the sounds. The soldiers stopped charging. They formed circles around her, watching in horror as she continued to kill anyone who came close. Bodies piled up around her like a wall. The ground was so wet with blood, the warriors slipped and fell. Fight! Vorak screamed from behind his guards. Why are you stopping? Kill her! But his soldiers did not move. They'd seen enough. They had fought enough. They had died enough. This human was not something that could be killed. This human was a force of nature, like a storm or an earthquake. You did not fight nature. You survived it. One by one, the soldiers started to drop their weapons. One by one, they stepped back from the circle. Some fell to their knees. Some simply turned and walked away. The great Calvorian army, conquerors of 12 worlds, surrendered to a single wounded human. Tay stood in the middle of the circle of bodies, swaying on her feet. Her armor was completely destroyed. Her body was covered in wounds. Only her will was keeping her alive now. Only her mission dot. She looked toward Varric. The general was alone on his platform. His guards had abandoned him. His commanders had fled. He stood with a weapon in his hands, shaking with rage and fear. "This is not over," he screamed. "I am General Varric. I am the greatest warrior of the Calvorian Empire. I will not surrender to a human." Tay started walking toward him. Each step was agony. Each breath was fire. Her body was begging her to stop, to lie down, to die. But she kept moving. "Stay back." Varric raised his weapon and fired. The shot hit Tay in the shoulder. She stumbled but did not fall. She kept walking. Varric fired again, and again, and again. Each shot hit her body. Each shot should have killed her, but she kept walking. "What are you?" Varric screamed. Tears were streaming down his face. "What are you?" Tay reached the platform. She climbed the steps slowly, leaving bloody footprints behind her. Varric threw his weapon at her, but she knocked it aside. He tried to punch her with his forearms, but she caught his fists and held him still. Up close, she was terrifying. Her face was covered in blood and dirt. One of her eyes was completely gone, but her remaining eye burned with a fire that made Varric's soul freeze. "What am I?" she repeated his question. Her voice was barely a whisper now. "I am human." She pushed him down. Varric fell to his knees before her. Around them, the surviving Calvorian soldiers watched in silence. "Please," Varric begged. He was crying like a child now. All his pride was gone. All his arrogance had disappeared. "Please do not kill me. I will do anything. I will give you anything." Tay looked down at him. For a long moment, she was silent. "I am not going to kill you," she finally said. Varric looked up with hope in his eyes. "You are going to live," Tay continued. "You are going to go back to your empire. You are going to tell them what happened here. You are going to tell them about the one human who destroyed your army. And you are going to tell them this message." She leaned down, bringing her face close to his. "Earth is not weak," she said. "Humans are not soft. We are survivors. We have survived ice ages and plagues. We have survived wars and disasters. We have survived everything the universe has thrown at us for 1,000,000 years. And we will survive you." She straightened up and looked at the watching soldiers. "Go home," she told them. "All of you. Take your general and your dead and go home. And spread this message across the galaxy. If anyone attacks Earth again, we will send another one of us. And the next one might not be as kind as me." She turned and started walking back toward her ship. Each step was harder than the last. The medicine was wearing off. Her body was finally giving up. She was halfway to her ship when she collapsed. For a moment, everything was still. The Calvorians watched, waiting to see if she would get up again. She did not. A Calvorian medic approached her carefully. He checked her body and looked back at General Varric. "She is alive," he reported. "Barely. Her injuries are severe, but she is alive." Varric stood up slowly. His legs were still shaking. He looked at the broken human lying on the bloody ground. This small creature had destroyed his army. This small creature had humiliated him. This small creature had done the impossible, and she had done it alone. "Put her in her ship," Varric ordered. His voice was hollow, empty of emotion. "Program it to return to Earth." The medic blinked in surprise. "Sir?" "She told us to go home," Varric said. "She should go home too." The Calvorians carefully lifted Tay and carried her to her ship. They placed her in the medical pod inside and activated the automatic return program. The ship's door closed, and the engines began to warm up. As the ship lifted off the ground, Varric watched it go. Behind him, his surviving soldiers were gathering the dead. It would take days to collect all the bodies. "General," Commander Drax asked quietly, "what do we do now?" Varric did not answer for a long time. He watched the human ship disappear into the sky, becoming a small dot and then nothing. "We do what she said," he finally replied. "We go home, and we never come near Earth again." He turned and walked toward his own ship, his shoulders bent with defeat. The message had been delivered. Across the galaxy, the story spread. The story of one human soldier who defeated an army. The story of the species that should never be attacked. The story of Earth. And on Earth, 6 months later, Captain Tay woke up in a hospital bed. She was covered in bandages. Her body would never be the same. But she was alive. General Park was sitting beside her bed. There were tears in his old eyes. "You did it," he said. "You saved us all." Tay tried to smile, but her face hurt too much. "Did they get the message?" she asked. Park nodded. "The whole galaxy got the message. No one will attack Earth again. Not after what you did." Tay closed her eyes. For the first time in 30 years, she felt peace. She had been made to be a weapon. She had been trained to kill. But in the end, she had saved billions of lives. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was what she was really made for. Outside her window, the sun was setting over Earth. The sky was turning red and gold. It was beautiful. She had almost forgotten how beautiful her home could be. She watched the sunset until she fell asleep, dreaming of a future where humans would never have to fight alone again. The war was over. Humanity had won. The first Calvorian soldier did not even see her coming. He was standing at the edge of the camp, holding his weapon lazily, looking at the stars. He was thinking about his home planet. He was thinking about his family. He was thinking about the celebration they would have after conquering Earth. Then there was a flash of silver, and he was thinking about nothing at all. Tay moved past his falling body like a shadow in the wind. Her blade was already clean. She had learned long ago to keep her weapon ready for the next strike. There was always a next strike. 2 more soldiers stood nearby, their backs to her. They were talking about food. One of them was complaining about the rations. The other was laughing at a joke. Neither of them heard her approach. Neither of them felt her blade until it was too late. 3 down. 9,997 to go. Tay did not slow down. She moved through the outer edge of the camp like water, flowing through rocks, smooth, silent, deadly. Every movement was perfect. Every strike was precise. She had trained for this her entire life. This was what she was made for. An alarm started to sound somewhere in the distance. Someone had found the first bodies. Shouts filled the air. Soldiers started running in all directions, looking for the threat, but they were looking for an army. They were looking for ships. They were looking for something big and loud, and obvious. They were not looking for a single shadow moving through the darkness. Tay reached a group of 10 soldiers gathered around the fire. They were grabbing their weapons, shouting at each other. Fear was starting to show in their eyes. They had heard about the dead soldiers. They did not understand what was happening. She attacked before they could form a plan. Her blade cut through the first soldier's weapon and continued into his chest. She spun and kicked the second soldier in the knee, shattering it. He fell screaming. Her blade silenced him before he hit the ground. The third soldier tried to shoot her, but she was already moving. She grabbed his arm and turned his weapon toward 2 of his friends. Their own Eli's shot killed them. She finished him with a quick strike to the throat. The remaining 5 soldiers finally understood what they were facing. They spread out, trying to surround her. Their weapons were ready. Their eyes were wide with fear and anger. "Kill it," one of them shouted. "Kill the human." They fired. Energy bolts flew toward her from 5 directions. But Tay was not there anymore. She had seen their fingers tighten on the triggers. She had calculated the paths of their shots before they even fired. She moved between the bolts like a dancer moving between raindrops. Then she was among them. It took 4 seconds. 4 seconds and 5 more bodies fell to the ground. 13 down. More to go. Tay did not stop to count. She did not stop to rest. She moved deeper into the camp, leaving death in her wake. Her armor was splashed with green blood. Her blade never stopped moving. General Vorak was standing on his platform, trying to understand what was happening. Reports were coming from all over the camp. Soldiers were dying. 20, 30, 50. The number kept growing. "What is attacking us?" he demanded. "Is it a machine? Is it a monster?" "It is the human, General," Commander Drax said. His voice was shaking. "Just the human. She is killing everyone. One human cannot do this." Vorak shouted. "Send 100 soldiers to kill her. Send 200. Drax nodded and gave the order. 200 soldiers formed a unit and marched toward the area where the human had last been seen. They were heavily armed. They were ready for battle. They found her standing in an open area, surrounded by bodies. She was not hiding. She was not running. She was just standing there, waiting for them. "Fire!" The unit commander shouted. 200 weapons fired at once. The night turned bright with energy bolts. The air screamed with the sound of weapons. When the firing stopped, smoke and dust filled the air. The soldiers waited, weapons ready. "Did we get her?" someone asked. The smoke cleared. Tay was still standing. Her armor was smoking, but she was alive. She had moved during the attack, dodging most of the shots. The few that hit her had been absorbed by her armor. "My turn," she said. She pressed a button on her wrist device. Small balls flew from her armor in all directions. They landed among the soldiers and exploded with bright flashes of light. The soldiers cried out, temporarily blinded. Then she was among them again. It was not a fight. It was a storm. She moved so fast that the soldiers could not track her. They fired their weapons wildly, hitting each other more often than her. They swung their blades at shadows, cutting air and friends. Panic spread through the unit like a disease. In 5 minutes, 200 soldiers became 200 bodies. Tay stood in the middle of the carnage, breathing hard for the first time. Her armor had taken damage. Some of the shots had gotten through. She could feel pain in her left arm and right leg. But pain was just information. Pain was just her body telling her to be careful. She had trained to ignore pain. She looked toward General Vorak's platform. Even from this distance, she could see him staring at her. His 4 eyes were wide. His mouth was open. For the first time in his life, he was feeling something he had never felt before. Fear. "General," she said, knowing her helmet speakers would carry her voice across the camp. "I gave you a chance. You refused. Now you will pay the price." Vorak's fear turned to anger. He grabbed the weapon from one of his guards and aimed it at her. "You are just one human," he screamed. "You cannot kill us all." Tay tilted her head slightly. "Watch me." She ran toward the next group of soldiers. Behind her, Vorak's shot hit the ground where she had been standing a moment before. The night continued. The killing continued. Across the camp, soldiers were dying. Some tried to fight. Some tried to run. Some tried to hide. None of it mattered. Tay found them all. Her blade found them all. By midnight, 1,000 soldiers were dead. By 2 in the morning, 2,000 by 4 in the morning. The number was past 3,000 and still growing. The alien army that had laughed at her arrival was no longer laughing. They were screaming. They were crying. They were begging for mercy. But mercy was not in Tay's programming. Mercy was not part of her training. She was a weapon, and weapons did not feel mercy. She was a message from humanity. A message written in blood and death. A message that said, do not threaten Earth. Do not attack our home. Because if you do, we will send someone like her. And someone like her was worse than an army. Someone like her was unstoppable. The second moon rose above the horizon, adding its light to the scene of destruction. Tay stood on a pile of fallen enemies, looking for her next target. Her armor was damaged. Her body was tired. But her spirit was still strong. Somewhere in the distance, she heard Varric screaming orders. His voice was high with panic. Retreat. He was shouting. Fall back. Form defensive lines. Tay smiled behind her helmet. There would be no retreat. There would be no defense. There would only be her.